Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, Dandatanam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. We are very fortunate today that we have among us Her Grace Devi Shakti Mataji. Most of us know about her. She is one of the earlier disciples of Srila Prabhupada. She got initiated at the young age of 18 years in 1970. And she has been distributing books, Prabhupada books, since 1970. And most of us who go to Vrindavan Dham, we see her still distributing books from her bookstall. So we welcome Her Grace Devi Shakti Mataji to begin. She has made a small presentation, and Mataji will be showing that presentation to all of us. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yes. All right. Can you see?
Yes, Mataji.
How to remove the block from the, put it down, okay. So, should I begin now?
Yes, Mataji, we can start.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nivasesa Sunivari Praschatya Deshatari. When Bhakti Charu Maharaj first went into ICU, Giriraj Prabhu contacted me and asked me to speak. At that time, we were all hoping that it would be a quick trip to the ICU. Maharaj would get better on the ventilator, and he would soon be back with us. So that was about 2 weeks ago. And during that time, we were all very hopeful, and we were all praying together that very soon Maharaj would get better. But instead, things got worse and worse. Today, the announcement was very serious situation, critical. And this presentation, as I was making in the very beginning, was very, very hopeful. And then as I studied Maharaj's words in his book, Ocean of Mercy, as things became more difficult in his situation, I realized a direct parallel between Maharaj's situation and what Maharaj experienced while he was serving Srila Prabhupada. So this is, in theology, there's a branch called hagiology or hagiology. We know, according to the Vaishnava tradition, there are two types of worship, and that is the worship of the Lord and the worship of his devotees. And Krishna tells Uddhava that worship of his devotees is better than worship of him directly. So here, Just as in Krishna's words, we have two types of katha. We have Krishna speaking about himself in Bhagavad Gita, and then we have the devotees speaking about Krishna in Srimad Bhagavatam. So fortunately, Maharaj, she wrote Ocean of Mercy, and within that book, there's so many statements there that are practically like slokas. So I took some of those statements to glorify Bhakti Charu Swami and to travel with him through what he's experiencing now as he experienced with Prabhupada. I have to figure out now how to hear. As we know, Maharaj, he began his journey in spiritual life very early. He traveled, he made mistakes, he realized the wealth of his own culture, and then he came back to seek a guru. So finally, he found Srila Prabhupada by the mercy of the devotees. He was able to engage in his service, and he wrote that the shelter of his lotus feet has made my life's mission a success. So that success has been spread to all of us because of his absolute 100% devotion to Srila Prabhupada. We're now all inspired to serve Srila Prabhupada and to carry on his mission just as Bhakti Charu Swami has done. During his search, he came to a conclusion: why struggle to achieve something that will be lost at the time of death? Better to strive for something that would lead to liberation and last forever. So when Bhakti Charu Swami met the devotees, of course, he understood that by engaging in devotional service, he would attain the topmost perfection of life, particularly by serving the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. And therefore, because of his previous sanskars and absolutely incomparable qualities, both as a devotee and also his material qualifications in the sense of all of his qualities as a person, he brought all of that to Krishna consciousness to serve Srila Prabhupada with. So next, we have the foretelling of, although of course she's not within our line, but she's respected, highly respected within India. She predicted about Maharaj that he's not meant for her ashram. He belongs somewhere else. And when he surrenders, the whole world will come under his feet. So we're seeing that now in this time of intense prayer and love for Maharaj. The whole world has now come under his feet, and we're all praying together that Krishna, if you so desire, please allow Maharaj to continue his service here to Srila Prabhupada. As Prabhupada later will see, Prabhupada lamented that he had only completed 50% of his mission to his Guru Maharaj. So similarly, Bhakti Charu Maharaj, with his intense desire to serve Srila Prabhupada, he couldn't sit in his room. He had to go on the battlefield and continue with his projects. And at the time, he had so many projects behind him that he had successfully completed. The one he was working on was there in Florida. He simply wanted to go there and continue with his service to Prabhupada, despite all of the challenges and all of the risks he was taking. So that's the example of someone completely surrendered to Srila Prabhupada. When Bhakti Charu Swami first entered devotional service, I met him at that time in Mayapur. Already, I had been distributing Prabhupada's books for 6 years. It was 1976. And I had been looking for Prabhupada because by his grace, he had his sister teach me how to cook, Pishima. So when he was in India, 74 and 75, he would allow me to cook for him. And then when he went away, after the Gorpurnima Festival of 1976, Prabhupada had given me a huge quantity of assignments in book distribution in India. And one of those assignments was for Mayapur, to see that his books were stocked and distributed there. So I left my service in Vrindavan and came to Mayapur for 6 months to set up book tables and book displays in Mayapur. At that time, we only had one building, the Lotus Building. We had a small Radhamata that installed, who we had all taken shelter of, Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And I needed help there. You see, I was working under Bhavananda Maharaj. He was giving me helpers, but they weren't up to par. So I went to Maharaj one day and I said to Maharaj, I need somebody with a brain. I need somebody to help me with this book program. And Maharaj, he called one bhakta, a brand new bhakta, to help me. And that new bhakta was soon to become Bhakti Charu Swami. He was initiated soon after that. And I saw immediately, although I saw him as just a child and he was there to help me, but I could understand immediately his elevated qualities. And he turned out to be the best helper I've ever had. I felt like I was helping him. And then the book program went on very nicely. I returned to Vrindavan and Maharaj. He continued there in Mayapur. And those of us who lived there during those austere times, it was like an island, and we only had Radha Madhava to worship and take shelter of. And one day, Maharaj, while chanting, he made a very intense prayer. He realized about the potency of the chanting of Hare Krishna. And he prayed to Radha Madhava, please allow me to become your devotee and remain engaged forever in your loving service. Now, to serve in Mayapur at that time was very austere, and we only had the shelter of Radha Madhava. So to make such a prayer and to understand that Radha Madhava, he could have given anything to Maharaj at that time as a new devotee standing before them, but he simply prayed for his loving service at his lotus feet. And by that prayer, everything then went very smoothly. When I finally arrived in Mayapur, he was first introduced to Prabhupada at the Kumbh Mela by Bhavananda. And then he became immediately part of the entourage of Srila Prabhupada, traveling with Prabhupada back to Calcutta. And while on the train, Prabhupada gave him also a lifetime assignment, and that was to translate all of his books into Bengali. And though he felt unqualified, Prabhupada was there to help him at every step. And later, when Prabhupada came to Mayapur and Swami was working on his services there to help complete the long building and print the second book in Bengali, Prabhupada, he said to Bhakti Charu Swami one day, just offer this to Krishna and see what happens. If nothing happens, what is the loss? After all, there's just one life out of so many. So Prabhupada, upon meeting Bhakti Charu Swami, he also recognized the elevated qualities of this new bhakta and assured him he would give him initiation on that Gaur Purnima. And not only did he give him Harinam initiation, but according to the devotees, they had never heard of this before. Prabhupada gave Maharaj double initiation. That means he gave him Harinam and Gayatri, both at the same initiation time. Yes, Srila Prabhupada, I'm offering myself to you. I know that if I do that, I will achieve the ultimate perfection of my existence. So these prayers that Bhakti Charu Swami is offering to Prabhupada and the instructions Prabhupada's giving, these are just like sutras. I saw them as sutras. We can remember the intensity of his love for Prabhupada and his dedication, and how Prabhupada so perfectly reciprocated that love. by giving Bhaktichara Swami very succinct instructions how to remain completely devoted and fixed at his lotus feet. And by simply studying the relationship between Prabhupada and Bhaktichara Swami, we also can learn how to become a perfect disciple just as he is. So there on that Gaur Purnima day, over 100 devotees initiated. And at the time of Diksha, he prayed, he told Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, I'm offering myself to you completely. Please accept me and utilize me in whatever way you want. Because he was already engaged in Prabhupada's personal service before he was even initiated. Prabhupada had made him the Secretary of Indian Affairs for him. He was doing Prabhupada's correspondence in Bengali and Hindi, and bringing messages to Prabhupada for checking, and also began the personal service of Srila Prabhupada. So you can see all around, Prabhupada was accepting him as his servant, intellectually, physically, every way possible. Prabhupada was pulling him into his service. And he didn't have time to even get Guru Dakshina for Prabhupada on the day of his Diksha. So he offered himself to Prabhupada as the Guru Dakshina, that Prabhupada, you please utilize me whatever way you want. Now, having lived there at that time in Mayapur, I immediately understood that he was the only educated Indian devotee in Mayapur. So a lot of responsibility was given to him both by the management and by Srila Prabhupada personally. And we all appreciated him very much. Now I went back to Vrindavan to continue my service and was anxiously waiting for Prabhupada to come. His health was poor. We were awaiting his arrival for the 1977 Gaur Purnima festival. But then we received word that Prabhupada was still ill to come to Vrindavan that year. And my heart was broken because I took care of Prabhupada's house and was looking forward to cooking for him when he arrived, despite his ill health. Bhishma had taught me how to cook for him when he was in poor health. So I thought, well, I'll just go to Mayapur and I'll serve Prabhupada there. And the devotees said to me at that time that, oh, there's no reason for you to go there because Prabhupada has a new servant now and he can do everything for Prabhupada. We knew, those of us who had the opportunity to serve Prabhupada, that Prabhupada always had at least 3 people with him, his secretary, his servant, and a GBC. But it sounded as if this one person was able to do everything for Prabhupada. He was able to cook, he was able to be secretary, and he was able to do the personal service for Prabhupada as well. And I wondered who was this amazing person who could do all of this for Prabhupada. And because I just come from Mayapur, I realized it must be that new Bhakta. I didn't know he was initiated by then, but I did know that he was the only person who had the qualification to serve Prabhupada so intimately. So for me, it was a great realization that I had this opportunity to meet him before he was taking up that service to Srila Prabhupada. Now, Prabhupada went to Bombay and Bhavananda wanted to keep him in Mayapur for his service. And Bhavananda told him that service to the spiritual master in separation is superior to personal service. And therefore he wanted Bhaktichara Swami to stay there in Mayapur and continue with his very important service, making the long building, continuing with his translation and his printing work. But then Prabhupada, he said, I think when your spiritual master wants you to serve him personally, you should do that. And with that, Bhaktichara Swami ran to Bhavananda. He says, Prabhupada wants me to go with him and he wants you to pay for the ticket. So he then began his new career, traveling with Prabhupada and serving him intimately. Prabhupada, while in Bombay, because his translation had to go on of all of Prabhupada's books. He was still working on Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada decided that he should have his own dictaphone, just as Prabhupada had. Now, this is where I started to see the parallels between Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktichara Swami. He was Srila Prabhupada's servant, and he was a dearmost servant. But there were particular qualities of Bhaktichara Swami that none of Prabhupada's other disciples had. None of us came up to that caliber. First of all, he was a lifetime brahmachari. Second of all, he was born in Calcutta, knew Bengali, knew Hindi, knew English, probably also knew German, highly qualified and educated. And he was very submissive and very attentive to Srila Prabhupada's service. So here we have Prabhupada beginning to set up Srila Bhaktichara Swami just as Prabhupada was doing. Prabhupada was translating the Srimad Bhagavatam at that time from his Bengali rendition with all of the tikas. And now he was having Bhaktichara Swami translate all of his books in English into Bengali. And he gave him the dictaphone. Bhaktichara Swami missed the personal interaction with Prabhupada, but gradually he learned how to use that dictaphone so that his service to Prabhupada went quicker and more efficiently. Then Prabhupada decided, by this time, they were in Vrindavan. Prabhupada had gone from Bombay to Rishikesh. One night, Prabhupada told Bhaktichara Swami that it's time for me to go to Vrindavan. It's time for me to leave my body. So they packed up that night. They came to Vrindavan. And soon after that, Prabhupada decided that now he should take sannyas. And this made a ripple amongst the other sannyasis, because to take sannyas was a very serious commitment, and it usually took years of service and preparation. But now this new devotee, having just been initiated a few months earlier, 3 months earlier, Prabhupada wanted to give sannyas. So they went to Prabhupada with their objections, and Prabhupada their objections and insisted that no, he's qualified, I'm going to give him sannyas. So then Bhaktichara Swami, he said, I understood that by giving me sannyas, Prabhupada would be securing me spiritually. There would be no possibility of me turning back. He had already asked me to offer my life to Krishna. Now he was making all the arrangements. So here again, we have the intervention of Srila Prabhupada for his one very dear disciple to become completely fixed at his lotus feet, by practically instantly bringing up to the highest standard of devotional service by awarding him with the ashram of sannyas. And that way, if he remained fixed in that ashram, there would be no chance of him turning back, reconsidering his commitment, or becoming lax in his service to Prabhupada. So this was the way Prabhupada fixed him. With the 4 rods of sannyas, the dandas, his body, his mind, his words, his very self, and the super soul guiding him, he then accepted the sannyas order and continued just as before in Prabhupada's service. I had taken a spiritual life with absolute conviction. Even before joining ISKCON, I had renounced materialistic life, and I had no intention of getting married or raising a family. In one sense, I was already a sannyasi. So this was Bhaktichara Swami. He was revealing his own thoughts to us in his book, that actually to take sannyas was just a formality, because in his mind, he had already completely committed himself to Srila Prabhupada, and he was already living just like a sannyasi. So after the sannyas ceremony, Prabhupada wasn't well enough to attend it. So there were many, many other sannyasis there that day. They awarded him through the yagya, and then he went to see Prabhupada, received his danda, received his mantras, And then right after the ceremony, he went right back into the kitchen and began cooking again for Prabhupada. And he said, especially when I started to cook for Srila Prabhupada, everything felt the same. I was rendering the same service and had the same responsibilities, even the same colored cloth. I just kept cutting the vegetables, reminding myself that my greatest gift was Srila Prabhupada's mercy and wishing that I never leave the shelter of his lotus feet. So Srila Prabhupada, he understood the heart of each of his devotees, and he understood the purity of heart of his one very devoted disciple, Bhakti Charu Swami. At that time, he gave him the name, he changed Bhakti Charu Swami's name, which he was just given, Kir Chor Gopinath Das, and he gave him the name Bhakti Charu Swami, one who is beautiful. Charu means beauty, by the controlling the senses with devotional service. So later, and also Bhakti Charu Swami discusses this, he came to Vrindavan one year, and he was discussing about his sannyas initiation, and he didn't want to repeat what Prabhupada told the other sannyasis, why he was giving him sannyas so quickly. And later, Prabhupada was speaking in terms of Sri Krishna. He said, when a great person speaks about himself, he cannot say very much about his own glory. He feels rather embarrassed. But those who love him, when they speak about him, they go all the way to glorify him. So Bhakti Charu Swami had asked Prabhupada a question, because by that time, Prabhupada was quite ill, and Bhakti Charu Swami was reading from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, including the Bengali slokas. And he asked Prabhupada that, didn't you say that we should start with Bhagavad Gita, then go to Srimad Bhagavatam, and then finally go to Chaitanya Charitamrita? And Prabhupada explained that in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is speaking. And when a great person speaks about himself, he can't say very much. Of course, Krishna didn't want to endanger that relationship with Arjuna by letting Arjuna understand too much about his glories, because that would break the friendship. So similarly, when Bhakti Charu Swami wrote his book, Ocean of Mercy, and also when he spoke about these particular pastimes with Prabhupada, he was in no mood to glorify himself. He says a person doesn't like to glorify themselves. But we who love him as a God brother, as a spiritual master, as a Siksha Guru, we can glorify him to the utmost. And that's what we're all trying to do here every morning. Each of us, according to our own particular realization of his magnitude of service to Prabhupada, we want to glorify him to the topmost, to understand that he is the perfect example of a disciple at Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. There was another sannyasi there at the time who was a great leader in those days, in the 1970s here in India, Achyutananda Swami, and he had a wonderful sense of humor, and he was sarcasm personified. So after the initiation, sannyas initiation, Achyutananda Swami called him. He said, from the time Maharaj joined, I knew he was in for some special mercy from Srila Prabhupada. So we all saw that. All of us who met your Guru Maharaj at that time, we all had the same impression. None of us said it to each other, but then after the sannyas ceremony, Achyutananda, he voiced it completely. He was in for some special mercy from Srila Prabhupada. And then he gave Maharaj all of his blessings. Achyutananda Swami was like an icon for your Guru Maharaj. He was expert at everything, at preaching, at kirtan, at pleasing Srila Prabhupada. So just as we take inspiration from him, Maharaj also took inspiration from his senior godbrothers who had been serving Prabhupada for many years before him. And through their association, from their inspiration, he learned more about how to serve Srila Prabhupada. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he noted, because he was also present there, of course, at the sannyas ceremony. Did you all notice that this is the first time Srila Prabhupada has given a sannyasi the title Bhakti, one who is beautiful and controlling his senses with his devotion? So this was a first for Srila Prabhupada in the awarding of sannyas. Previously, Prabhupada would just take the original Diksha name and add either Swami, if he was unmarried, or Goswami. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, for instance, was the first Goswami in our movement because he had been married. So in that way, he simply added the title to the end of the initiated name. But it was the first initiation of sannyas that Prabhupada actually changed the name and added Bhakti to that sannyas name, Bhakti Charu Swami. Now that you have become a sannyasi, you are a guru. You can initiate. But as long as the spiritual master is present on the planet, one does not give initiation. That is the formality. So this was something that Srila Prabhupada said privately to Bhakti Charu Swami after his sannyas initiation. And actually, when Srila Prabhupada took sannyas, he also did this. When he took sannyas from Pragya Keshav Maharaj in Mathura, he immediately went out preaching. He was preaching in those days in Agra, Delhi, in different cities around the Mathura area. And he was accepting disciples. And Keshav Maharaj became displeased with this. And he said, well, when you get married, of course, there'll be children. So when you dedicate yourself fully to Krishna, it's just like a marriage. And naturally, the purpose of marriage is to have children. So the disciples are just like children. So Prabhupada was informing him that now as a sannyasi, you're also a guru. You can also accept disciples. But the formality is to wait until the spiritual master leaves the planet. So this was a prelude to the future responsibilities that would be accepted by Bhakti Charu Swami after Prabhupada entered Samadhi. Prabhupada then told him the ultimate secret of spiritual success. If you remain in the association of devotees, then Maya will not be able to touch you, because Maya is Krishna's external potency. Association of devotees, Krishna's internal potency. Association of devotees, and never ever go away from that shelter. So Bhakti Charu Swami, he said that this was the ultimate secret of spiritual success. And since Prabhupada told him that, he has always remained in the association of the shelter of his god brothers, his senior devotees, helping to his utmost the junior devotees who are under his care. And we also can take this sutra as the ultimate secret of our spiritual success as well, to never ever go away from that shelter of the association of devotees. Bhakti Charu Swami then asked Prabhupada, but what if I'm all alone on an island? Because a lot of times, and this happened especially just after Prabhupada left the planet, the devotees went out to their different zones and they were completely isolated. Just once a year, they would come to associate with each other at the Mayapur festival. So also as a forecasting, as a prelude, Maharaj asked Prabhupada, what if I'm completely alone? Then how do I take association? And Prabhupada told him, just remember the instructions of the devotees. That is also association. And he prayed to Prabhupada, please bless me, Srila Prabhupada, that I never go away from the shelter of your lotus feet. So here we're understanding his realization about the importance of associating with Prabhupada. He gave him his association the last year of his appearance here, 1977, and then he disappeared. And after that, Bhakti Charu Swami has been very sincerely, very rigidly taking the association of his god brothers. so that he can always stay strong in his Krishna consciousness. We should never think that we don't need the association of the other devotees. No, we need their association. We need to take shelter of them. And he's the perfect example of how he took shelter of his God brothers. I was impressed with how Srila Prabhupada had collected the most brilliant gems of devotees from all over the world. He had more than 5,000 followers who would do anything to have even a moment of his association. But even though I had only recently come to ISKCON and was still such a neophyte devotee, I was personally serving him every day. He did not need any service from us. He was giving us the opportunity to serve him out of his causeless mercy. So this was also the case of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati with Srila Prabhupada. Although Prabhupada had very few years association as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's disciple, he received a lot of special mercy so that he could carry on the mission that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had given him. And Srila Prabhupada also, in the last year of his appearance here, he showered Bhakticharya Swami with so much personal association and so much mercy, because it's not chronologically that measures our level of advancement in Krishna consciousness. The spiritual master, he knows the level of our Krishna consciousness. And therefore, Bhakticharya Swami received the topmost amount of mercy during that last year of Prabhupada's presence, where Prabhupada took him in completely as his personal service and showered him with so many instructions that he shared in his book, Ocean of Mercy. Prabhupada once told him, "There's so much to do, but I have become so sick. I'm not able to do anything. What I have done is 50%. The other 50% is to establish Varnashram Dharma. ISKCON is for the devotees, but not everyone will become a devotee. Not everyone will be able to surrender to Krishna. For those who will not, who will continue to act according to the modes of material nature, in order to situate them in the proper human culture, we need Varnashram Dharma." So this was Prabhupada's lamentation before he decided in August of 1977 to go to the West to preach. At that time, Prabhupada, he couldn't walk by himself. He had to be carried. He was in extremely poor health. He was undergoing Ayurvedic treatment from the Kaviraj at Gopinath Bazar. I forget his name right now, Bansi. So, and the treatment was going well, but Prabhupada was lamenting that he's only completed 50% of his mission. And therefore, even in that condition, such a compromised situation where he could hardly even take care of himself, he hadn't eaten for months properly, he wanted to go preach. While Prabhupada was there in Vrindavan during those months before he left for England, he was still translating. And he would have Bhakticharya Swami read to him from the different, from Prabhupada's books. He told Bhakticharya Swami that scriptures are like an ocean of nectar. From wherever you drink, it is nothing but nectar. When one has the clear understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then one can read any scripture and relish its transcendental sweetness. So this was an answer you see here behind Prabhupada. We first studied the Bhagavad Gita, then we go on to the pastimes of Krishna and his different avatars in Srimad Bhagavatam, and then finally, the summum bonum of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela and Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Prabhupada was having Bhakticharya Swami read from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Prabhupada explained to him at that time that once you have the foundation of understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, you can read any scripture, and any scripture is just like an ocean of nectar where you can draw nectar and enjoy the pastimes of Krishna in any scripture that you read. Then Prabhupada, he decided in early August that he can't rot here in Vrindavan. He had to complete the mission of his Guru Maharaj. And as he had revealed to Bhakticharya Swami, he felt he had only done 50%. Srila Prabhupada was so determined to go to the West that no one could change his mind. I also knew from things Prabhupada had said that he had made up his mind to go. A soldier doesn't like to die on his bed, he said. For him, to die on the battlefield is a death of honor and glory. He was determined to go out on the battlefield and fight. Now, this is practically verbatim what Bhakticharya Swami, his message to everyone when he decided to leave Ujjain and go to America. He said, I can't just hide here. I have to be in the front. I have to preach. So where did he get that idea, that inspiration, that determination, that even in this most dangerous time, he felt he had to go to America and preach? This is exactly the mood that Srila Prabhupada shared with him at that time in 1977. He had to go preach. He couldn't just rot in his room. And as much as Bhakticharya Swami desperately wanted to stop him, he knew he couldn't stop Srila Prabhupada from going onto the battlefield to fight. I wish that he was not leaving Vrindavan, but he was inspired to preach, I realized, and the world needed him. He could not be confined to his room. So these were the lamentations of Bhakticharya Swami when Prabhupada was leaving Vrindavan. And exactly as he was lamenting about Prabhupada leaving, we were all thrown into that exact same lamentation when we heard that he was going to America to preach. None of us wanted him to go. We all wanted him to stay safely here until it was safe for him to travel. But he was determined, just like Srila Prabhupada, to go and preach. I did my best to check the emotions that were flooding my consciousness. Why did I let him go? I chastised myself. Why hadn't I been more forceful and asked the senior devotees to persuade him not to leave? Then I realized that we had to surrender to whatever Srila Prabhupada wanted. He was a pure devotee of the Lord and knew what Krishna wanted him to do. And nobody could have imagined that his condition would deteriorate so quickly. I wanted to embrace him, to release all the agony from my heart in tears. So this is where we are now. None of us dreamed that Bhakticharya Swami would be afflicted with coronavirus, would be admitted into ICU, would be in such a dangerously critical situation now. And we're all thinking now, why did we let him go? We're just praying, and the agony in our heart is coming out in tears. Now, where did this all come from? This is because he saw Srila Prabhupada. He saw the example that Prabhupada gave him in these last times. Now, we're not saying these are the last times for Bhakticharya Swami. No one is saying that. But he's reliving exactly what he experienced when Srila Prabhupada left and went to the West. And we're reliving that now. I felt helpless. Srila Prabhupada's condition was critical, but there was nothing we could do to help. He was emphatic that the best medicine was the holy name and that we should pray to Krishna and depend upon him. What he was going through, he reminded us, would happen to us all. I began to understand that through his own example, Srila Prabhupada was teaching us how to prepare ourselves to leave our bodies. So we're living this right now, this helplessness. There's nothing we can do to help Bhakticharya Swami at this point, but to give him the best medicine of chanting the holy name, and that we should pray to Krishna and depend upon him. Why is this example coming? Well, why did Srila Prabhupada go in that condition to preach? To set an example for us, that this will happen to all of us, and therefore we have to prepare ourselves. Now, Prabhupada didn't leave his body. He came back to Vrindavan, and at that time, he allowed the devotees to serve him intimately. His sister also came. Naturally, his sister, out of intense love for him, wanted to cook for him. He couldn't eat, nothing. He had no appetite. Nothing was working inside. But Prabhupada explained that he was accepting Pishima's cooking just to please her. I am already a dead man. If I die eating or starving, it doesn't really matter. Prabhupada, you're not going to eat that. This was said by Kirtananda Swami. Why are you doing this to me? Do you think I do not know what I should do and should not do? Don't ever think that you know better than your spiritual master. Now, this is how we have to see things at this point. We're all asking, why did Maharaj go to America? Look what happened. Do you think I do not know what I should do and should not do? Don't ever think that you know better than your spiritual master. So this is the instruction that Srila Prabhupada gave to his disciple at that time. It was one of his first disciples, Kirtananda Swami, and it was said very sharply to him. Bhakti Chara Swami said it was the first time he ever saw Prabhupada speak sharply like that. So we have to understand that Bhakti Chara Swami is in the hands of Krishna. He knows what he's doing. This is not a mistake. He's a pure devotee, and we have to accept this all as the Lord's arrangement and part of the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada and the Supreme Lord. And Pishima, 3 times we know that Pishima stated this. Although Prabhupada couldn't eat at that time, Pishima confirmed about a pure devotee. If Prabhupada wants, he can digest even stones. So the condition that Bhakti Chara Swami is in right now, we shouldn't see this as a material condition. This is part of the Lord's pastimes to increase our love for the pure devotees and to increase our dependence upon him. Now, when Prabhupada came back to Vrindavan, he was in also a critical condition, just as Maharaj is in now. And he knew that he was going to leave his body at that time. In fact, he even ordered the salt for his own samadhi. And the devotees cried when they saw the salt coming in the gate. And then, this is the entrance of the temple at that time. And you'll see where the Prabhupada samadhi is now, there was just a garden. The land in front of the temple was disputed. Srimati Gita Daivi unofficially donated it. She wrote a note to Prabhupada in his garden one day. But her husband made a legal case to retain it. And that case was going on in Mathura. Now, Prabhupada understood all of that. And he decided that right at that disputed land, that is where his samadhi should be made. Because once the samadhi is established there, there's no question of the land being taken away. So Prabhupada, even at the time of his preparing to go back to the spiritual world, he was still planning how to protect this movement, how to protect the temple of Krishna Balaram, and how to even utilize his samadhi for preaching Krishna consciousness worldwide. So that's why Prabhupada decided to put his samadhi there at the front of the Krishna Balaram temple. Now, the Ayurvedic Shastri, Damodar Prasad Shastri, was brought by Adridharan from Calcutta. And Prabhupada, he said to the devotees, I will get well only when I die. Actually, he told that to Bhakti Chara Swami. Hearing that, I could no longer control myself. I broke down in tears. Srila Prabhupada soothed me like a father. Is that what you have learned from me? Didn't I teach you that the spirit soul never dies? The spirit soul simply changes the body. It migrates from one body to another. He was reminding me that he would always be there with us, even if we could not see him. So Damodar Prasad Shastri, he was trying his best through Ayurvedic treatment of the kaya, of the body, to bring Prabhupada up to a healthy level. But he also saw that this was not an ordinary sickness. Damodar Prasad Shastri told us that Prabhupada's condition was quite serious, further aggravated by his weakness. He was not able to fight off or rectify his ailment. He mentioned that the kidneys played a crucial role. They filtered the blood that supplied energy to the body. Therefore, when the kidneys malfunctioned, the impurities did not get filtered but remained in the blood. Prabhupada responded that medicine could not counteract the laws of material nature, birth, death, old age, and disease. So as an Ayurveda Acharya, Damodar Prasad Shastri, he was analyzing Prabhupada's physical condition. But Prabhupada, understanding the spiritual nature of these bodies, he said any type of medicine could not counteract the laws of material nature. So though there's manifestation of disease, that disease ends in what? Old age, death. So Prabhupada knew that whatever type of treatment he took could not counteract these four elements of material nature that were presently being manifest in his body. Now, Prabhupada was giving instructions to his intimate members of the community at that time. He told them, you all learn from their mistakes. Their mistakes means the Gaudiya Math. And don't make the same mistake. Manage the institution collectively through the GBC. Don't try to become a big leader, but function collectively for the pleasure of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world, I have given you all everything. Now you just maintain it. So whatever happens, whatever service we have, we shouldn't try to become a big leader. We should all work collectively for the pleasure of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Whatever instructions we receive from our spiritual master, either from Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Charu Swami, or those of you who have taken shelter, you simply try to carry out those instructions collectively, taking association of the devotees, and never stray from the association of the devotees in ISKCON. Guaranteed failure if you do. So Bhakti Charu Swami, he took all of these instructions so seriously. He never strayed. He always stayed within the protection of the GBC. He was a GBC. He always cooperated with his other GBC members. And therefore, all of his projects were successful. Srila Prabhupada is a pure devotee of Krishna. By Krishna's mercy, he also has inconceivable potencies. These are all his pastimes. A personality like Srila Prabhupada should stay for the benefit of the whole world. He could save millions of embodied souls from their suffering condition. So this is what the doctor said about Prabhupada's actual condition, that these are all his pastimes. Because he told Prabhupada, sometimes I feel your pulse and you're in a critical condition, and then a few minutes later I feel your pulse and it's that of a young man. So he knew, he saw personally that this is inconceivable potency and it's all Prabhupada's pastimes. When Prabhupada couldn't even move anymore, he was still translating Srimad Bhagavatam with his disciples. So Damodar Prasad Shastri, he was given the choice because he was being called back by his other patients to Calcutta. And he decided I could save a few people by going back to Calcutta. But if I save the life of Srila Prabhupada, that would save millions of people's lives because of the preaching that he's doing. So similarly, Bhakti Charu Swami, we're all praying that he get resurrected, become healthy again, so he can continue with his preaching work for Srila Prabhupada. and that way help millions of people through the preaching that he's doing. This was when Jayapataka Swami came to see Prabhupada. And Jayapataka Swami, he very much wanted to finish the TOVP while Prabhupada was still on the planet. And Prabhupada responded to him, "It is now very brief. On any moment I can." And then Jayapataka Swami said to him, "We are all praying that Krishna will give you your strength back. We are a bunch of neophyte devotees. What can we do? What ability do we have? Without your inspiration, association, without your guidance, we won't be able to do anything. It will be impossible for us to do anything." So this was Jayapataka Swami's pleading to Prabhupada to please stay. And Prabhupada, he left it up to Krishna. If Krishna wants me to stay, I'll stay. If Krishna wants me to go, I'll go. He was completely in the hands of Krishna. Then, when they were reading to Prabhupada, what happened? Lokanath Swami, he came from Padayatra, and they had just gone to Bhavana, and they had gone to the place where Bhimadev gave up his body, and they had gone to Vyasadev's cave and offered Srila Prabhupada's English Bhagavatam to Srila Vyasadeva. And when Prabhupada heard about this Padayatra, he decided he wanted to go on Vrindavan Padayatra. And Bhakti Charu Swami was mad. He couldn't contain himself. And don't you see, he can't even turn over by himself. If we move him just a little bit, there's so much pain. And he convinced Krishnadas Babaji to tell Prabhupada not to go on Padayatra, not to go on Parikrama. And then because of this, secretly, he spoke to Krishnadas Babaji to please, only you can convince him. So then Prabhupada relented. And the devotee said to him, "Srila Prabhupada, you put us through such anxiety that we could not make out how to deal with the situation." And Prabhupada responded, "See how much they love me." And Krishnadas Babaji, he said, "They're so fortunate that they have a spiritual master like you." So this experience that we're all going through right now in praying for Bhakti Charu Swami to remain with us, this is intensifying our love and our prayers to Krishna, that he please stay with us, allow him to continue his preaching work for Srila Prabhupada. And that intensity of prayer, we're hoping Krishna will hear that and allow him to stay with us and simply overcome this hurdle. It's just a body. Body parts can always be replaced, just as in the miraculous example of Jayapataka Swami. So we're in the middle of this dilemma right now, and our intense prayers and our love for Bhakti Charu Swami on a spiritual platform, we pray will carry him through this, and all together we'll be able to greet him again and assist him in his preaching work. I think that's the end. One more. This is when Srila Prabhupada left his body amidst uproarious kirtan, and Damodar Prasad Shastri said to Bhakti Charu Swami, "Please don't cry. He's going back to Godhead. Let him go. Don't cause any hindrance to his journey back to the Lord." So because we, as infinitesimal parts of the Supreme Lord, can't understand the huge plan of the Lord, naturally, we experience such separation from devotees when they leave our association. And that brings tears, great lamentation, as Bhakti Charu Swami experienced when Srila Prabhupada left this world. But the doctor was preaching to him that let him go. Let him go back to the Lord, if that's what the Lord wanted him to do. So whatever may happen in this situation, none of us want to lose the association of pure devotees, but we can remember this, that the plan of the Lord is greater than our desires. And we have to allow that plan to be executed through his pure devotees. I did not want to leave Srila Prabhupada's side. I wanted to stay and continue serving him in his samadhi. When the devotees began pouring soil, I still did not move. But Tamal Krishna Maharaj knew what was going through my mind. He just grabbed me by my hand and dragged me out of that holy pit. Srila Prabhupada had entered into Radha Krishna's eternal pastimes. So this was the intense love that Bhakti Charaswami had for Srila Prabhupada. As one of the most intimate associates of Srila Prabhupada, he wanted to stay there in Samadhi with Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada's assurance that although he would someday disappear from our vision, he would always be present. For a while, in order to lead us onto the spiritual path, he had become visible to us. And then he had left our sight to motivate us to move forward toward the spiritual world, sometime in the future, it does not matter when, I will reach my ultimate destination and once again be at the... Okay, it's 9 o'clock. Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Mataji shared.
Hare Krishna. I think Mataji has disconnected. Prasanna Prabhu, would you like to say something?
Just conclude. I think Mataji left.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. We would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to Hare Grace Daivi Shakti Mataji for sharing such a wonderful realization. Grace was telling me actually last 1 week she completed Ocean of Mercy for 3 times from beginning to end. And she was serving with our Guru Maharaj in Vrindavan 1977. So we'll thank her by chanting one time Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Hare Grace Devi Shakti Mataji ki, Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanande.